YouTube. I'm here a whole year later, talking to you again in front of the camera. A lot has happened. I've moved to San Diego, California. I am now based in Southern California, no longer Northern California. I'm not in Davis. I am now near the beach, enjoying the SoCal weather, although it's quite cold, as you can tell by my hoodie. I am currently sitting in my gear closet. It is now a safe space where I can operate as the independent filmmaker, the freelance photographer, and above all, the creative that I've been aspiring to be for the past few years now. And yeah, I am coming to you live to talk about a recent project that I've been involved in. I am making this video first and foremost as a way to sort of document my experience moving forward, allowing it to give me momentum so that way as I look back on this project while trying to move forward with it, it gives me a sense of intention and deliberation and structure. And I am doing this, talking to the camera, with little to no preparation or cutting or fancy edits and whatnot, or weaving storytelling, and just trying to nakedly talk to the camera because, yeah, I watch so many people do that. I don't see why I shouldn't or couldn't do it myself. And I get a lot of value from the people that do that. So here I am, trying to show up, trying to talk, hold myself accountable. That being said, let's talk about the project at hand that I was able to do last year. The event is called the Rock Rumble Royale, hosted by Cliffhanger Guides. The assignment essentially was to document the event, document the outdoor bouldering competition that was taking place in Joshua Tree National Park, as well as the conservation aspect that was tacked on to the event through various different entities, various different nonprofit organizations, and key people that have something to say about climbers out in the wild and doing the right thing to conserve the environment. That choice of words is important. One day you'll find out once the film comes out. That being said, the why I wanted to pursue this film project was I saw a flyer simply at the climbing gym that I currently work at. It's called Grotto Climbing and Yoga here in San Diego. I saw the flyer for the Rock Rumble Royale, and in big noticeable numbers was the prize pool of $16,000. And the pro category actually got quite a lot of money stacked on top of it. And what was more interesting to me was part of that prize money was going to go to select nonprofit organizations that benefited the conservation of Joshua Tree and the Mojave Desert at large. So essentially the pros that would compete get the money, they would get their piece, as well as be able to contribute to a greater cause. That decision to have such a strong conservation aspect attached to the competition is what drew me in. As someone who loves rock climbing, and as someone who loves natural history stories, and telling both of those kind of stories in filmmaking, I was so intrigued on how I can bridge the two and figure out a way to talk about climbers and the environmental impact that we have when we go out there to those crags. And I'm actually working on a long-term side project called The Story of a Crag, which aims to talk about the natural history of a crag and the sort of climbing history of a crag in terms of its development, and using those sort of two aspects to bridge them together as a way for people to have a different kind of mindset when approaching their outdoor adventure. So I wanted to sort of tack that sort of notion on to this project with the Rock Rumble Royale, in that I wanted to shift the mindset of the climbers going outside and have them sort of pay attention more to the greater landscape at large, rather than just the performance of climbing, and rather than just the climber themselves and all the sick climbs seriously that people are able to do out there. I mean, on one hand, that's a big draw of the film. You know, that's the human aspect of the film. Climbers being framed into the landscape is what my mission was from day one of seeing that poster. Talking about how I got the gig to begin with. Once I saw that flyer, I had to figure out who I needed to talk to in order to sort of get the idea out there. And I looked at the Instagram of Cliffhanger Guides, and I saw that they were pretty active in promoting their event. Now, I also saw on their account that I had some mutuals that followed the account, as well as the account following my mutual friend. Shout out to Steve. The man himself was kind enough to give me some info on who the people that run the event are and who are some of the key people I need to reach out to. He was able to put me into contact with the head honcho himself, one of the other guides. And before I actually reached out, I did a little bit of recon to figure out what approach I can take for this film, especially when pitching it. I ended up talking to Steve briefly, and eventually I felt comfortable enough sending out an email. It was kind of a long sort of waiting game where I didn't hear back for a while, but then eventually I ended up getting on the phone, calling up the offices of Cliffhanger Guides, and I was able to talk to the office manager. I think that was what really kind of pushed things forward. And this was probably 3 weeks out before the actual event. So in the grand scope of things, this is kind of a last minute request and addition to the event and everything else that they have to coordinate. As a filmmaker, I think it's my responsibility to coordinate my project, obviously, and I did my best to be able to keep things within my control, so that way the people that I was working with didn't have to do anything extra in order for me to realize the project. Once I finally got into contact with the key people over at Cliffhanger, the next step was really just showing up. And it was a constant series of showing up. The first interaction was getting out to Joshua Tree to stay at the Seth's Pool. And there it was really a challenge of, okay, we need to have a conversation, talk about the project, talk about what his intentions are, what my intentions are. And I think overall it was a very great experience. I had a great time staying on that piece of land and experiencing what it is that Cliffhanger Guides are trying to do with this competition, where it's all stemming from and where they want to sort of propel the trajectory of climbers today. And despite it all being good and fun, it wasn't without its troubles. There were some misunderstandings, some miscommunication errors. It was kind of a roller coaster of yeses and nos and woes and not trying to step on toes, but we got through it. And then of course there was another up and down, where the issue of a budget was brought up. Being such a late addition to the event, I could understand the issue of talking about a budget and how it may not be possible. In a way, I see it having played out two ways. We have the old school way of producing films, producing TV, producing content, where there are many external factors at play. News outlets, media outlets, brands, organizations, they would be involved in being able to fund the filmmaker, the creative, the photographer, their project, whereas the photographer seeks out their subject. Essentially, in this case, Cliffhanger Guides are the subject of my project. Therefore, they thought nothing would need to be paid out of their pocket, which is fine. I think that old school methodology of getting things done still persists for good reason. And I came at the whole project from, I guess, a new school perspective, where I'm a filmmaker, I have this idea, I'm going to pitch it to these people as if they're a client, they're going to want something like this for their future benefit, and that would sort of be the end-all be-all. What's unique about this situation is that though it was a very rough conversation that didn't go exactly how I wanted, and most certainly didn't go as how they might have wanted it, I think we found a great middle ground where certain things can be covered. And it gave me an idea of what more I could do with the film other than just give it to them. At this point, I want to just give it to them, but I want to find a platform where many people can see it. I want to be able to share it in a way that isn't just within my bubble, especially. And I want it to be a challenge for me to be able to see how I can operate on the other side of things. And I think this is a sort of great hybrid situation that will allow me to sort of shape future projects and approach it in a way where I can succeed, as well as make sure that the client I'm working with has a sense that their investment makes sense. And it isn't just me coming in to do something for my benefit. Can't believe I got through that. That being said, how the hell was I going to pay for this project? How was I going to be able to go to Joshua Tree for 3-4 days on my own dime, especially when it meant having to not go to my day job? I had to specifically request time off from my day job. That's where the platform called Ko-fi comes in. I was looking through multiple different platforms that allow one-time donation-based transactions. I've heard a lot about Buy Me a Coffee. I've heard a lot about Patreon, and a lot about PayPal and Venmo. In doing research, I landed on Ko-fi for a number of reasons. I liked that it was a service that was essentially free and could be upgraded in time for different types of things like membership tiers and whatnot. Anyways, one day I might explore other options. I'm really interested in Patreon, but I need to make sure I can consistently create and share it with people without any sort of walls or red tape. Anyways, Ko-fi was a platform that essentially saved my ass last minute. I had literally created the Ko-fi page that I have probably 3-4 days before the actual event. And I made this page because once I had that meeting with Cliffhanger Guides out in Joshua Tree, I was out scouting in the park itself, and I had just been thinking about ways that I can not really put myself in 6 feet deep financially. And I did reach out to sponsors. I reached out to around 6 or 7 of them. I was able to receive one sponsorship email that they did express a lot of interest, but due to timing issues, they weren't able to get me anything in time for the event. So with all these sort of ghosting happening, these sort of last minute can't happen, can't help sort of situations, I thought, okay, what could I do myself that can help? And Ko-fi is where I landed on, or Ko-fi. And I had to make a video where I was essentially asking for money. And that doesn't really fly with how I grew up. It doesn't really fly with me. It's not something that I feel comfortable doing. I don't ever ask for money. So it was hard for me to finally come to terms that I should do this for myself. Some things that sort of allowed me to say, yes, okay, I can ask for money, is that filmmakers do it all the time on something like Kickstarter or GoFundMe. And above all, the cause for this film is far greater than anything that I can ever make on my own sort of endeavor. With it being an environmental film, essentially, with climbing as the medium, I felt more comfortable in saying, hey, can I have some money to fund this project? Anyways, yeah, so having thought about that part, you know, people asking for money, I've actually contributed to people who have asked for money through things like GoFundMe or Kickstarter. In fact, I actually fund a handful of people on Patreon and YouTube subscriptions in order for those creators to be able to live a sustainable life as content creators, as photographers and filmmakers especially. So it just dawned on me, how come I can't ask the same for the people that follow me? I don't have a huge following like the people that I watch, of course, because I don't essentially put myself out there. But I do have people that are friends who contribute to the same kind of things that I would imagine are interested in helping me. I mean, thankfully, let's just jump to the outcome here. The coffee page was a huge hit. I was able to raise far more than I was expecting. I ended up raising around $800+ when I was expecting $700 essentially from the goal page. I really wasn't expecting anything. I thought maybe $150 would really do me what I needed to do. It would really allow me to do what I needed to do. So everything else was essentially a plus, and I'm so grateful that people were so kind to support my cause, support the cause of the climbing conservation story that I'm trying to make. And yeah, I am super stoked that a platform like that exists. I will continue to use it, especially right now as I am at the journey of trying to share more of this adventure, this online YouTube endeavor that I'm trying to stick to for the rest of this year. And if you'd like to support me, I'll leave the link to my coffee page down into the description. And yeah, I'm so lost for words with how grateful I am for the support. Overall, I just hope that the film can speak for how amazed I am with all the support I'm getting. And I tried my best to send it on film day, on production day, and now we are here in post-production trying to get things all tied together in a story. There's so much things I want to talk about. I'm going to be making a weekly series, essentially. I'm going to call it my DocuDiary, where I am essentially talking about this project, everything about it. In this section, I talked about pre-production, essentially, and the next video I want to talk about is how I was able to prepare for the weekend of filming. I will talk about the bag that I used, because I got a new bag, and the base camp setup, as well as how I was able to traverse 12 plus 4-hour days out in the desert, out in 29 Palms, and yeah, we'll get more of my thought process there. Alright, 23 minutes in, I'm done. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you in the comment section below. Please like, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram too. That's where I interact most with people. And above all, I just hope that today's video makes you inspired to get outside, get out in the wild. I hope to see you out there myself. Take care.